Hello everyone and welcome back to a video here on my second channel where I'm talking about pre-generating a world and showing you a little bit of a program that I'm sort of developing. As you might guess, this is related to Hermitcraft Season 7 and how I'm going to pre-generate lots of terrain so that the performance is good. And let's start off with the question why. Why would you want to pre-generate Minecraft terrain? Well, for example, when we fly off into the distance, we start to generate new chunks. The game has to create them. If we fly into an area that's already been created, it is far less work on the game and therefore on the server to load as opposed to generate. So when you start a new world and you've got loads of people running around in the server for the first time, they're going to load up lots and lots of chunks as they explore in different directions. What we want them to do is load the chunks and not generate them, which is why we start off by pre-generating. Now you can do this in all dimensions. I've done it in the Nether, the Overworld, and the End for Hermitcraft Season 7. And the way that we're pre-generating the world is by using the teleport command to move the player through the world. And so I'm using an external program to send commands into the chat to do these teleport commands. Now there are a few other considerations you'd want to do before you start pre-generating, and that is perhaps turning off things like daylight cycle, weather cycle, and even mob spawning, so there aren't other events and things happening in the world. We want the world to be basically as neutral as we can while we teleport around and generate the world. So it should be obvious that we've got to teleport around the world, and we're going to use some maths and teleport in the shape of a grid. So for example, we can teleport 3 times across over there, go down a row, teleport 3 times across, and you know, that's absolutely fine. However, it uses an odd amount of numbers. So we can picture the middle one as 0, 0. However, I felt more comfortable with using an even amount of teleports. And I believe that's because the game is based on a grid system, so the chunks are lined out in a grid, meaning that there isn't actually like a central 0, 0 block. So going around that principle, I decided to do it this way, but you can do odd or even. Now we're going to be loading 3072 blocks in each direction, and the reason it's that number specifically is because of the region files. So the region files store all of the chunks like the one that I'm in right now, and they are 1024 blocks in each direction. So that means that we're doing 6 region files across a total of 36 region files. So I'm going to be writing a script to send teleport commands into the game, and I'm going to be using some logic with loops so that I don't actually have to write out every single individual teleport. And also I can make sure the loading of the world is a little better by looking around like this. One thing I've noticed when you teleport to a location and then you turn to the side, you seem to prompt the game into loading the chunks in the distance. So I'm making sure we're teleporting to each location and then looking all around us to make sure it's all been loaded. So this command right here only ever gets sent once. It's the very first teleport, and it sends us to the utmost corner of this grid of teleports that we've created. The second command then starts to rotate us. Notice how these right here mean that we stay in the same position, but we change the way that we're facing and looking. So we'll be up in the sky looking down at the world and rotating like this. So that's what the next couple of commands are. They simply just rotate us around in a circle to look in all of those directions. And then we get to this one right here. And what this one does is it actually just teleports us across relative to where we currently are. And that means that we'll then go from here over to here. And this is where the loop goes back to the beginning. So now we're going to start teleporting around in a circle again. And then when we reach the end, we teleport across, we go around in a circle, we teleport across. But after we've done that loop a certain amount of times, we then come to our next loop, which is this command over here. It's going to teleport us back to the beginning on one coordinate, but down relative on the next one. So that means that we shift downwards, but we also go back to here. And then guess what? We start this series of teleports again. So we're teleporting around in a circle, then we're moving across, and then that loop continues, and when it reaches the end over here, we come back to this one, and you know what happens? It means we go down a row and back to the beginning, and then the looping continues. So here is a time lapse of this in action. I believe it's actually been sped up by about 8 times in total, so this is 8 times faster than the teleports are actually being sent into the game, and this seemed to work flawlessly. Now you'll notice that there are some erroneous messages in chat, and that was actually from earlier when I was still tweaking the script and the rate at which it sent things into chat. But at this point I basically got it so every command got through, and you can just see it in action. We are rotating around in a circle, then we're moving across, and occasionally we get to the end of the row and we come back to the beginning and we move down on that grid that I showed you just a moment ago. I should also just amend this and say that it worked 100%, and it took about 2 hours, and you could possibly speed that up or slow it down based on the system that you're running. But after I did all the preloading, I opened the world up in another tool just to check that all of the terrain had been generated, and it had done successfully. So now we get to look at the code, potentially the most boring and possibly confusing or interesting depending on if you understand this stuff or not. I also want to give out a shout out to MonPJC, who helped develop the auto clicker that I showed in the fishing tutorial. He helped add in some extra script here and help me get, everything up and running. One of the big things is this part called Chunk Builder. This allows us to put the code we want to execute inside of a bracket, and we can execute that code after pressing Control, Alt and Q. So this meant that I didn't have to open the script and then quickly Alt and Tab into Minecraft or add a delay at the beginning. You can start the script when you're ready. So that's fantastic. Up the top here, there is another part right here, and you're going to hear me talk about variables a lot. If we turn this into a program with an interface, then the variables mean you can change things based on your system. Now, I got this working with set key delay at around 50. When you go under 50, you're sending the key inputs to the game, and it's not quite picking all of them up, so that causes some issues. So I set it to 70 just to be safe. And the faster that is, of course, the faster it types commands, and it adds up overall to make the whole generation thing a little bit faster. So this will probably be a variable where you can set it from 50 to 100 if you're on a slower computer. A larger number might be required. Now, as we go down, there are again variables. TP delay is a variable between every single teleport, so you can slow the whole thing down based on your system. So I set it to this number right here, and I'd tried a few. I maybe could have run it a little bit faster, but I wanted to be safe because this was for Hermitcraft. So again, this becomes a program. That'll be another variable you can change, and then you can make the program generate faster or slower. So it starts off by sending that delay, and it does it in between all these other commands, as you can see here. So we have our very first teleport command right here. And again, another variable is that we're using maths to spread out our teleports around the world. So based on the grid size you could tell the game you want it to generate, these numbers right here would change, and they would also change in correlation with the loop function that we have right here. I've actually got a feeling that's supposed to be 24 and not 23, but I might have the wrong file open. But anyway, we go into 2 loops, and this is like I described a moment ago. So we start off a loop, we jump straight into the next one, and we start to teleport around in a circle because we're already in that utmost position thanks to this teleport here. And then we do the relativistic teleport, and then we go back to the loop right here. So that's us running across a whole row of those teleports, and then once that loop is done, we go back to this loop. And the first thing it does is initiate this one again. But of course down the bottom here we have that teleport to bring us down a row as well. So with this, if you were to generate a smaller area, this number would become smaller, and then the amount of loops you would do would be smaller as well. But that's all you would need to change. So it's pretty cool stuff. Hopefully you understood it. When you get through the end over here, you can see there is also a teleport just to go back to the very middle of the world, which isn't necessary, but it's there. So as you probably gathered, I want to turn this into a program. The script that you just saw successfully loaded the world, so I'm pretty confident it can be done, but it might take a little bit of time. However, my ears are open. If you've got suggestions and whatnot, put them in the comments down below. One thing I think we might do is perhaps have these run at the beginning of the script and then turn them back on at the end, so you don't have to worry about that. And also, teleporting into other dimensions is pretty easy as well, as you can execute, I'm using the wrong one here, execute in, you pick your dimension, and then you run the teleport command and teleport the player to that dimension. So this thing can easily support all dimension without the player having to set up a portal or move around the world or anything like that. So it could end up being a very cool and powerful tool, but I just wanted to make this video to show you how it's done and maybe give you some of the tools and insights into how you could create your own script to do this. But But yeah, anyway, that's it from me this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon on Season 7 of Hermitcraft. Bye-bye.